Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today is our second Tool Review Tuesday. Today, I want to go over the best sockets you can get depending on your budget and depending on what you're using them for. This is something that is super case dependent, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I'll give you my rundown and you can decide for yourself. First step today is going to be covering my whole workbench here with every socket I own. I'm gonna have to find all my sockets. It should be mentioned that I trust this workbench about as far as I can throw it. If you see 8 different socket sets collapse onto my feet in the next 10 minutes, please call for help. Before me here, I've got 3 different brands of sockets. It's all that I own, at least. I would love to get more brands and, really do an across the board comparison, maybe with some material testing, but for my YouTube size, I'm not doing all that. We've got the cheapest, which is Craftsmen. Picked this up at my local hardware store. This was my first socket set kind of thing. The first one when I was like, I'm gonna rebuild an engine for no reason. I went and got this Sunex sockets, which are probably the most industrial, the most robust out of the group here. And then Klein sockets. At first glance, you might be like, a socket's a socket. Why would I even care, right? Let me just go get the cheapest thing ever. I will say, the only one I've ever broke was one of the cheapest Craftsman ones. Out of these 2, I've never broken a socket. I've had less time with them, don't get me wrong, but I've never broken either the Sunex or the Klein. If you're a new mechanic, budget's low, obviously. Everybody's budget is low. Something like this is great. This is a Craftsman 135-piece set. This comes in at $130 and has gotten me through just about everything auto mechanic wise. It has 1/4-inch drive, 3/8 drive, 1/2-inch drive, just about every socket in the books. And these are sockets that, in the price range that they are, especially with Craftsman's pretty loose warranty, I don't feel bad, mutilating a little bit. I had to get into a really tight spot with this one on a Honda, guilt-free. Took the old grinder to it and shaved it down to real thin, and it worked great, right? And I don't feel bad. So what if it's a little rusty? This is a pretty cheap socket set for what you get. One thing to consider when they say it's a 135-piece set, they do count, for example, each of these bits as individual pieces. So it's really like a 100-piece set because, who's buying a socket set for the bits? But it is nice because this set will get almost anything done. We mentioned the torque wrench last week. Having the worst carrying case out of everything. The latches were kind of a little bit iffy and the plastic was kind of bad. Craftsman did do very much differently with this one. This case is sturdy. I've had this set for a couple of years now, and it is absolutely rock solid. The plastic is super thick, super hard, and the latches feel sturdy. They're not cheap little latches. Overall, this is amazing. It also has the end wrenches, which is really nice. So you can fit almost everything you need in one set and get it done. That said, downsides to this. For projects that are going to require, crank bolts, for example, that's where this socket here is not quite the same as all the other ones because it is an AutoZone brand socket that happens to fit in this hole and also happens to be the size of the crank bolt on a Honda Accord. That one did bust a socket. For more robust things or for sockets that you really want to last a lifetime or care about in any way, that's where you might dip into some of the nicer ones. I think I had one of the ratchets go bad. It did explode just out the back kind of thing, but I was able to just take it into the hardware store. They just gave me a new one. Craftsman is really, really lenient. They know that their stuff is going to break. And honestly, the fact that they're self-aware and will just give you new stuff is pretty cool. Now here's where we get into the nicer sockets. This is going to be stuff to use if you're working on vehicles or if you're working on things that need sockets all of the time. Craftsman set's good. It's great for around the house stuff. It's great for cars. It's great for all that. But if you're doing this for a living or for full-time or even, heavily part-time, a nicer set of sockets is a huge upgrade, especially when they're these heavy-duty impact sockets. These weigh a lot compared to the Craftsman ones. And are pretty much indestructible. I won't say fully indestructible. I haven't had one break yet, and I've been very happy with them. This is a Sunex 3/8 drive master set. This is a 75-piece set. It has both metric and standard sizes, and it comes in at $270. The pros to this set: I absolutely love these wobble tip sockets. Almost omnidirectional, they have a pretty decent range of motion. Super handy for getting on a bolt that's in a tight space. Very, very nice and tough. This whole socket set is tougher than nails. Other pro is the extensions that this comes with. You got a 15-inch, a 10-inch, and a 5-inch. Oh, and sorry, a 3-inch as well. You have unlimited extension options. We could make a full wizard's wand out of this. And this set comes with Torx bits of pretty much every size imaginable as well. The final pro to this, in my opinion, is this omnidirectional, just wobble type joint connector that also gives you a little bit of an extension when you need it. When you get a nicer socket set like this, it's kind of expected that you already have a ratchet. Sunex sells ratchets as well, but that's a case where, again, the Craftsman ratchet might be just fine for what you're doing, or you're using these on an impact ideally. Unlike the torque wrenches, where I really thought the Sunex cases blew all of the other ones out of the water. Plastic is good and thick, but the side clasps are kind of, I don't know, they'll probably okay for a while, right? They latch great, you know, or mostly great. I can see this after 5 or 10 years, you know, doing this over and over and over to it is gonna wear and tear on it a little bit. One other thing to note with this socket set is that it is, you know, good briefcase size, pretty big, but it's also pretty heavy. You know, these impact sockets are a little heavier, for sure less mobile than the Craftsman setup. That one's got, you know, kind of less thickness to all the material. It's pretty light. But B, it's got everything included, right? So this, you still got to pack your ratchet, you still got to pack your other tool bag, right? But that's super situation based, right? So if you were rolling around a shop, if you had a big toolbox like the one I've got in the corner of my room here, I would rather stock it with these ones than the Craftsman ones any day, because these are going to last forever. If you're more on the road or just need something to tuck under the seat of your pickup, this is probably not your best choice. That brings us to the last Sunex ones, which happens to be the 1/2-inch drive, both metric and standard. And these go up to ginormous sizes. This is your in the shop, you need these for a specific thing, you have a reason for this, right? The average middle-aged dad probably does not need a 1 7/16 impact socket just lying around the house, right? But you might someday, so I don't know. These come in at, for the metric is $183, and for the standard is $220. Why that price difference is, I don't totally know. Maybe they make more of the metric ones and sell more of the metric ones because the US is dumb and is the only one that uses standard, but whatever. These are each 43-piece sets, identical to each other, and just like the other Sunex ones, these sockets are not held in by anything. They're just all in their nice little, they have little slots in the tray, versus the Craftsman version that everything really clicks in, sometimes annoyingly so. I should mention that the Craftsman version is hard to get sockets out of sometimes. They don't have all of the wobble sockets that the Master set had in these sets. I believe Sunex does sell those though. However, they do have the wobble joint, just extension for it. Kind of tough sometimes to find 1/2-inch drive small sockets. A 9mm, for example. This one's a 1/2-inch drive 9mm, which honestly, why you would ever super need that, I don't know, because in my experience at least, anything below like a 13 has never been tight enough for me to like desperately need to bust out a 1/2-inch drive, you know. But these are super nice to have. As long as I can keep track of all of them, I should be okay. I did actually fumble my 17mm of this set as well. I'm missing 2 17mm because of a fight with a car I had in gravel, like big chunky, you know, roughly gravel that was roughly this size. Yeah, like large chunk gravel. And I dropped a few sockets. You know, that's the one bad thing about impact sockets, I suppose, is they blend in really well with dark basalt rock. So watch out for that as well. Good news though, since these have a deep well as well, I do still have my deep well 17. Overall, bang for buck wise, these are great if you need them. If you don't need them, I wouldn't buy them. If you desperately need a big 1/2-inch drive socket, just go buy one for $35 and then be sad and wish you would have bought this whole set. Last but definitely not least is the Klein Tools socket set. Klein is super well known for their pliers, especially stuff like this, their wire strippers. Great wire strippers, don't get me wrong. However, they wanted to dabble in sockets a little bit. They made these impact sockets, at least I believe they're impact sockets. They're a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter than the Sunex ones, less industrial kind of feel, but pretty cool kits that they come in. Now this one has a ratchet and a screwdriver that I actually left in my pickup right now. But it comes with the ratchet, the Klein handled screwdriver, similar to this, but with an attachment that you can put anything on here. And that's really nifty, as well as some weird connectors to make everything work. Now one thing Klein has been really diving into is the flip sockets. So you got a 9/16 on one end, 1/2-inch on the other, and then the drive that goes up through them can, you know, just clicks into the middle, so you can flip it over and you got 2-in-1 kind of deal. I don't know how these would handle under a high load situation, so I have to put these at less of an industrial or like high workload grade than the Sunex ones for sure. But I think they can combine the quality of Sunex with the packability, the tiny carrying case, and everything you need all in one kit like Craftsman. That said, they are more expensive than Craftsman, right? So this is one of those things if you're looking to splurge a little bit. This 39-piece set is $160, but it does come with both metric and standard, just about any size you might need. All of these cases have little handles on them, right? There's several of them. With the ratchets, they have this relatively unique system, a hole in the center pretty much. When you want to put on a normal ratchet or a normal socket, you might just click this in here and go nuts with it. If you want to put on a screwdriver attachment kind of deal, you do one of these. But if you have a bolt in a terribly hard to reach place, down inside in between two narrow grooves, they've got these funny pieces here that click straight into the center of this, and you essentially have the thinnest possible socket ever here. Now all you got to do is be able to weasel this in, and then pretty cool tool like that. Overall, a pretty amazing set, because the size at which they condense every size of standard socket you might need is pretty incredible here. These cases, the top plastic's a little cheaper. I'm biased against clear plastics most of the time, but it is pretty cool that you can see everything, so, you know, whatever. The latches on these are nice. They're kind of slide and then pop. Good latches on these. One thing to note about these boxes is that Klein is very much modular with their storage systems, so all of these boxes click onto each other. So we've got two of these boxes put together, right? So I can lift it from just one of the handles. As you get more Klein tools, you can just keep stacking these boxes. Now, I think they sell like a little cart or something, or like they sell stuff that you can, you know, put all of these modular boxes in, but even the small one clicks onto the top of the big ones. You know what I'm telling you, a mod box, so that adds up. Probably the most impressive today in terms of compactness, right? You can fit like every tool you could possibly imagine in this little stack of tools, but you might not necessarily have the robust, more industrial stuff that you get with the Sunex, or the cheap price that you get with the Craftsmen. At the end of the day, it's really budget dependent. If money is tight, just go the cheap stuff. Go Craftsman, go Harbor Freight, whatever. It's all going to be pretty similar. I've been very impressed with Craftsman. They've never reached out to me or anything. I have no sponsorships at all from them. They've pleased me, you know, for what it's worth. Obviously, I'm an amateur, but their warranty is very, very nice. You can just absolutely abuse these things, and most of the time they're gonna, you know, take it back and say oopsies. If you're going for industrial, if you're going for a higher quality, you want stuff that's gonna last a lifetime, I would go Sunex. I've had a few chances throughout life to use some really nice sockets, you know, Snap-on, whatever. I could not be happier with the Sunex stuff in terms from a quality standpoint, right? Never had one break. I've used them on some pretty absurdly large bolts. Very happy, but also expensive. If you're on the expensive side, but you're also more of a, you know, not necessarily working in a machine shop or working in an auto shop or constantly working on cars, right? But you want a for sure upgrade from the Craftsmen, I would look at the Klein stuff. Their wire strippers obviously are great. That's what they're known for, and screwdrivers. I am very happy with this mod box setup, and if you're somebody that wants to be a little bit on the go, or, you know, doesn't necessarily need the industrial grade but wants to upgrade from the really cheap junk, very strong choice. I would recommend it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, but these are just the three I'm most experienced with. Different applications for sure. I think this was a great first purchase when I was an 18-year-old. This was great to have in the most recent engine rebuild I did, and these are coming in really handy recently, just as a nice, compact, easy, portable thing to take around with me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this video wasn't too long-winded. Sockets are kind of boring, but I don't know. If this can help just one new mechanic somewhere in the world learn a little bit and get started a little bit easier than I did, then it'll all be worth it. So thank you so much, and like and subscribe.